Hello there. Welcome to JonnyBuildz. I am your host, Johnny, and with me is a very special guest. I only actually met him last year at Brick Erie, and it was very brief. But he has been working very hard on a certain project that has recently gotten a lot of traction, and we're here to talk about it. So, welcome my special guest, Jason. How you doing tonight?
Awesome. Thank you. I'm doing great. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
So let's kick into it. And actually, I want to ask first, who are you? Who
Sure.
is Jason?
Who is Jason? I am Jason Middaugh. I live in Syracuse, New York, with my wife Tina, my daughter Jane. I guess you could say that I'm an A-ful. Um, but it took a little time to kind of realize that, probably. Like a lot of folks. When I was young, I collected Lego. I only did stuff from the instructions, though, kind of my whole life, until my daughter was probably about 5 or 6 years old, and then we got out my old Lego sets, and she really liked it. So that was when I started to think, hey, maybe I can build her a toy, right? So we started with she got a Kindle that year for Christmas.
Okay.
So we started by building like a little drive-in movie theater around like the Kindle for her minifigures to kind of watch movies and things like that. And from there, it just kind of took off. One of the things we did, which was interesting, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the Cafe Corner set, which is like probably the original modular building. I had that. My wife got me for when it first came out, and I had not put it together. And then I'd say I made the mistake probably of taking it out and building it with my daughter, and then looking like the next day after I built it how much it actually was worth.
Yeah. that's that.
um,
That's kind of one of those things that like you find out after the fact, but at the same time, it's like it's Lego. It's meant to be played with.
it
It's
is. It
not
is.
supposed to be an investment, even though a lot of people have started doing that.
You're right. So I struggle with that a little bit after that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely
Um,
get that.
yeah. So what was really cool about that set though is that kind of had its own like growing up, I'd never seen like those modular techniques, right? How to put things together that way, and it kind of opened some new doors on kind of how to build certain things.
Right.
One important thing it did was it also had me take stock of the rest of the sets that I have,
Hmm.
and I'm I don't know, I guess happy to say that I found a Cloud City unopened in that in that stock of Lego, which I did not put together. So had that not happened to me with the Cafe Corner, maybe I would have put that set together instead. So that actually worked out okay from that perspective. Um, but after kind of doing that with the Cafe Corner, we live in like the Finger Lakes region in
Okay.
Syracuse, and we have like a little lake house that we go to. It's seasonal, but all weekends over the while it's open, and then over the summer. And I thought it would be a really cool thing for Christmas some year to just like come up with a design for that. It was back when Lego had Lego Digital Designer before even Studio, and I kind
Way
of
back
fumbled
in the
around
day.
with it, and I designed we call it a camp, right? I guess cottage, whatever we want to call it. I got all the pieces. I built the instructions, and I gave it to my daughter when she was, I guess, I don't know if she was 6 or 7 that year, for Christmas. And my wife said, "Hey, you should submit that idea to Lego. That's really cool." And I'm like, "You can't even do that, right?" And and for whatever reason, I just looked into what if I had an idea, and this was 2015, 2016 ish, and I found out that they have this whole process.
Hmm.
And at that point, I was like, you know what? Nobody's gonna know what this is. They're not gonna want my little, custom lake place. But we came up with the idea at that point for the house from A Christmas Story. So
Okay.
you can probably see the leg lamp behind me. And by the way, this is not on purpose, but my three Lego ideas projects that I've gotten to 10,000 are actually all represented behind me.
Oh, that's
We
very
got
cool.
the leg lamp. You can see It's a Wonderful Life just above the jukebox there, and then the newest addition is actually a framed Jelly of the Month certificate that somebody gave me earlier this year. I had a little snafu with a bonus at work, so it was actually nothing to do with the Lego project, but somebody had a funny joke and framed that and gave it to me. But anyway, we submitted a Christmas story. Some really awesome things happened with that. We got it to 10,000. They did not end up moving forward with it, but it really kind of opened the door for, I don't know, the rest of the Lego ideas journey from there. Like I said, we did It's a Wonderful Life after that, and then most recently we did National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, and it's weird how they all kind of fit together. They're all interrelated.
Yep. I actually had a question about so you had Lego, like would you say you had a dark period? Because a lot of older AFOLs seem
Sorry,
to have
Jonathan,
that.
I'm not hearing your audio.
Oh, you're not hearing me? Oh, hold on. Hold on. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Sorry. There we go. You should hear
There you go. No problem.
Yeah. So a lot of AFOLs, older AFOLs, more my age, we had a dark period. Would you say you had a dark period where it was like, oh, everything just kind of sat there and there was no Lego in your life, for a while, for a time period, and after, like, when you if you emerge, when you emerge from that and you had your daughter, you said like, was she in, like, did she like just one specific type? Like, I know Friends was a big one that was like, hey, let's get more girls involved with Lego or something like that. Or was she like anything Lego? It was like it was all good.
Yeah, so I would say I definitely had the dark period. The interesting thing with it was I still received Lego all the time for Christmas and birthdays and things like that. And it wasn't necessarily that I didn't want to do it. It just, life happens, right? And I kind of thought at that point, this would be fun to do when I have a kid, right?
Right.
So
right.
I kind of saved up some of those, like I mentioned with the Cafe Corner, that was one of those ones I kind of saved up to kind of do that. So it was almost like it was a dark period, but knowing that I would always come back to it probably.
Mm-hmm.
And then my daughter, when she got into it, I'd say she got some friend sets, but she was more interested in kind of the stuff that I had, less probably into Friends than some of the other stuff. But now she loves like the botanical stuff, a lot of the animals and things like that. So she kind of likes it all. And her boyfriend Jack is actually a big Lego fan as well. So he's into like Star Wars and Ninjago and things like that.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely, Star Wars is definitely my particular thing. So the modulars really got you into kind of like, I like how this works. Can I do something on my own? That's what got you into like mock design in the first place.
Yeah. That's kind of where I started at, after the drive-in, kind of building the camp. I built that in a little modular style, right? And then did the Christmas Story house, that project was crazy. That was one where I had built it. I reached out to the house in Cleveland. They shared it on their website, and I kind of went crazy. But that was at a time when it was a lot harder actually to collect votes on Lego ideas, and just to kind of introduce the Lego ideas process. I'm not sure everybody understands exactly how the process works. But anybody can submit an idea to Lego. They've got their own website, Lego, ideas.lego.com. Essentially, you take pictures, or you can build digitally. You write a description. Yeah, and all my projects are brick built. For a couple reasons. I like to kind of truly prove a concept it. But ultimately, I'm building to have it too. Right, like these are things that I, sets that don't exist that ultimately I want to have. So if they don't exist, I'm going to build it, and then I'll put it out there. And if somebody else wants it too, right, they can go ahead and vote for it. So you go to the website, you take pictures of your project, or you build digitally, you upload those photos. Um, Lego will give some feedback sometimes, like, hey, you know you have to improve maybe the quality of your pictures, or they'll do minor grammar corrections, things like that. But ultimately, once it gets approved to get on the site, it's open for voting. It has to collect 10,000 votes, which we realized how many that truly is. It doesn't seem like a lot when you say it, but it is a lot, especially considering that you have to have an ID on the Lego Ideas site to vote. That's the only place somebody can go to vote. So it's not like a Facebook like or something like that. Somebody actually has to go to the site and vote for it. But when we first did A Christmas Story, it was a lot harder actually to get the votes. Once you get the 10,000 votes, it then goes through a Lego review process where Lego then 3 times a year, I think, takes a look at all the projects that got to 10,000, and then each review period will pick one or more. Actually, there's at least one time that they didn't pick any to ultimately move on to be an official Lego set. So the first time when we did A Christmas Story, that we were actually only one of 7 projects. Just to kind of put in perspective, when we did It's a Wonderful Life, I think we were one of 35. And then this last round, when it was Christmas Vacation, it was actually one of 146 projects that had made it to 10,000. So I will say a lot of that has to do with improvements that Lego has made with the website. A lot of the feedback we got at the beginning was so hard to vote and get an ID and everything, and the site was down. But they've made actually a lot of improvements that have made it easier. And it's also been out long enough. A lot of people have voted for projects in the past. So it's just a broader base that are aware of Lego Ideas.
So quick question from the chat already. Is there a time limit? And I know the answer to this. Is there a time limit to getting to the 10,000 mark?
Yep. Great question. You have, so I think you get 60 days to get your first 100 votes, right? If you make it, then you get a year extended, so a year and 60 days to get to 1,000 votes, and then if you get to 5,000, you get another year. So essentially, you have up to 2 years plus like 60 days, I think, is the total that you have to get to your 10,000 votes. And to put in perspective, this took first project took a little over a year. It's a Wonderful Life took a little over a year. This one was about 3 months.
Yeah, I saw the timeline for that, and I was like, wow, that's pretty. And I would think too, like, the longer you have for something to be in the works, you would think it, in some ways, like, oh, more time, that means more votes. But at the same time, it's also like, more time it's been up there, people start to forget about things and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I always like to think that part of the criteria that Lego would look at is how long did it take you to collect the votes. And it's actually difficult for me. I don't have a ton of like online presence and social media and things like that. So, I think we had met, right? I'm showing my stuff in person. That's a lot of times, and that's not usually the best way to collect votes, because you can only meet so many people. But what it does, it always seems to open up doors, right? You'll meet somebody that then knows somebody else, and maybe there's some other way that you can, get a story out there or something like that. So we try to take every opportunity to kind of show, and it means a lot more in person. I think, like you said, a lot of the builds are digital. And I think it takes away some of the fun of it too, right? To be able to kind of show and see people's excitement when they see the sets.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I did an Ideas one a year and a half ago. They were like, let's go back to the 80s, and so like people, I think that's where the Gizmo came from. Yep. That they did, which is a great set.
Yeah.
But I was a big fan as a kid, a fan of Dino Riders, and so I did a T-Rex that could walk, and like I actually built it, But it was like, silly me, I waited too long, and like right at the end, it's like I didn't upload like a video of it actually walking. I had to be like, it does walk, I just can't show it to you, blah blah blah. Yep. And like people were like, oh, it's kind of cool, but I wish I could see it walk. So it was like, that was like one of those frustrating things of like, had I done it, again, I would do it a little bit better. And I'm kind of curious too. So obviously you did this last year, got your votes and stuff last year. How many iterations would you say has gone into this particular mock, the Christmas Vacation?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say, I don't really necessarily work in iterations per se. It's probably more in tweaks, right? So kind of the first step, and what's funny is typically when I build, typically what I'll start with is what is the hardest thing to do? Like, what don't I know how to do? And let me start with that first. And if I can't figure that out, I'm gonna, I don't want to get to the end and then figure out that there's something I can't do. So the first thing I actually built on this set, and it's gonna sound weird, is the reindeer on the front lawn. I was trying to figure out how the heck am I gonna have sort of the right scale of a reindeer that's on the front lawn, and what I ultimately came up with was using the dog, right? So you can probably see it. So it's a dog with like the perfect angle of like the skeleton arm to hold the antlers that puts it literally at the exact right area, and it's actually one of the things I'm most proud of the build, even though it's something so simple. But once I kind of got that, I'm like, okay, we got Santa and his reindeer on the front lawn. Let's go for the rest.
So you kind of use that as like your basis for your scale. I mean, obviously it was going to be minifig scale, but you still
minifig,
yeah.
But
it still kind of
so
gives you a good view.
Yeah, like I think they have reindeer. They're like the frozen reindeer or something. They're just too big, right? And I didn't want to use something that was too big. And they're, in the movie they're pretty good size, right? So I thought that kind of worked out pretty well. So like I said, a lot of what I do is just kind of tweaking. So start with building that. I built the house originally to be modular, but I didn't put an inside on it yet. I wanted to make sure I had like the gutter that kind of came free, so Clark could hang from there. And then the next kind of big addition was when I added the interior, but it goes together pretty quickly. I mean, typically a first pass is usually kind of over a weekend, kind of putting it together, kind of the inside and the outside. It might take a day to do like the RV or something like that. But a lot of tweaking, and then a lot of getting the exact right parts, right? That's always the logistics part of it, is one of the challenges that you have when you're doing a actual brick built model too.
Especially when you have to wait 30 days for some parts and the other ones come within like a week, and it's like
yep, exactly. And to your point earlier, a good lesson learned, I think, with Lego ideas is kind of the prep work beforehand, right? Kind of having all your ducks in a row as best you can. What's funny is this particular one, I submitted it. I didn't have pictures of the inside when I did it, so I was trying to get it out there as quick as possible, because I'd seen that it's actually very interesting with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. We had built it several years ago, but Lego was not accepting proposals for it at all for whatever reason. You couldn't actually submit for it. But then I saw that somebody else had a project out there, and I was like, oh geez, we already built that, and I wanted to make sure I got it out as quickly as possible. But normally trying to kind of take the time, making sure you have your right photos, everything that you need to kind of get it up there. Initially, you weren't even allowed to update projects. That's another thing that Lego has since changed.
Yeah, and speaking of,
I think I signed up for Lego Ideas about 6 months before I ever submitted the project.
Yeah, speaking of the, I think we had a little blip there. I don't know if that was my internet or yours. It's all good. Yeah, speaking of like the other set, like I accidentally, before I put up, or whatever, I first put up the advertisement for this stream, I'm like, oh, here it is, because I looked at someone's article that said, hey, this is one of the sets that's made it. They had the other one up, that was up there, and I was like, whatever you let me know, I was like, but I got okay. And then I looked a little bit more into it, and it's like that one also hit the 10,000, but it's in review, which is kind of interesting. And I wonder if Lego's going to be like, well, we kind of like this from this one, but I wonder how that's going to play out. And again, I know you have an NDA for certain things, so like, are they going to?
Yeah, well, I can already tell you, because yeah, no, I know how that works. So it'll get what's called archived. So essentially, this has happened in the past, where they've had projects that have been picked and other projects even in the same review period. So what they do is they pick one project, and then any other projects that are similar or the same IP, that they'll essentially archive them and they're no longer active. So they won't, unfortunately for those folks, won't be able to review those. Which I will say those other projects that folks have out there are awesome. And in my mind, I kind of, when I first saw the projects that they had them out there and we had ours, in looking at the scale, they seemed very, very large. And that's where I thought, you know what, mine is actually a little bit different scale than theirs. And like I said, I had already built it. So they had already gotten to 10,000. It's actually their second time at 10,000. So they got to 10,000. There's a review period before ours where they didn't select those. And then I was in the next review period and they ultimately selected my project. Scale wise, we're just about the same size as like the Home Alone house. Those ones would be a little bit bigger than that.
I was going to say, it looks about like the Home Alone house size, which probably is a very important aspect to it, because when you try to go too big sometimes and try to get detail for everything, then it almost becomes too much.
It's an awesome mock is what it is, right? But it becomes a little less commercially, in my opinion. Like I said, I have no inside knowledge of this stuff, just to be perfectly candid. But just this was my opinion, and this is why I kind of put mine out there. They're awesome mocks, but it becomes, it starts to get really expensive, and could be a challenge there.
So since yours is a little bit smaller, what did you feel, because you already mentioned like the gutter, what did you feel was absolutely necessary that had to be in there to be like, this is quintessential, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation?
Yeah. Yep. So we're still able to get a ton of detail. We've got Cousin Eddie's RV, right? That's probably, when I show it live, that's probably the first thing that people see to know exactly what it is, right? They look at that and they go, and then you see that like flash of recognition when people, eyes light up, and then they start grabbing their partner, whoever, come over, you got to see this, right? So we knew we had to have that. We have a squirrel, which of course, a lot of times we'll get comments, hey, where's the squirrel? I'm like, don't worry, he's there. We also added like the extension cords where, he plugs in the lights. So we've got kind of those leading to the front lawn. One of my other favorite things that we came up with was a moose mug. It's gotten very, very simple. It's 3 pieces. It's just like a little clip, a little teacup, and the antlers. But it actually works. So I really like the way that had turned out. In the inside of the house, we have a burnt out Christmas tree. So it's black actually, to represent when Uncle Lewis lights it on fire. And then in the yard, we actually have a tree stump where it's, where he cuts down the tree. One other little thing that we had, so up in the attic, so the attic is kind of fully furnished. It's got like the movie theater projector and the hatch that opens up where he falls through the floor, the floorboards where he kind of steps on the boards and hits himself in the face. But that little window, where he looks out that window, I wanted to also have that in that corner. So we try to kind of come up. There's some other little things in the house as well, but there's so much in the movie that when you show people, they definitely light up and recognize all those little things. And I felt like we probably weren't limited as much for all the little Easter eggs and the essentials. But size of the house, right? The rooms themselves can only be so big. So. Right.
Yeah. And just want to let chat know, by the way, as we're doing the interview and just talking about everything, if you have any questions, just post them in the chat. We'll get to them at some point. But yeah, and I was gonna mention that about like unfortunately I don't have any pictures of the interior. I know I saw 1 or 2, but for whatever reason I didn't get any of them here. But this, what I have up right now is with it kind of all modularly taken apart. But it's kind of neat. Now was because of the way, I mean, like obviously you know when you first design it, you like, did you start with any graph paper at all, or was it like completely like, you know what, I know kind of what I'm looking to do and I'll just start putting blocks together? And did you know you wanted to have a bit of an interior, or you were just going for the outside first and then move to the interior?
Yeah, good question. So, um, I typically, all my builds basically start on like a 32 by 32 base plate. It kind of gives me like a starting point that says let's try to fit it within, because to me that's kind of minifigure scale. Now I added a 16 by 32 for the garage, which is fine, but essentially the house itself sits on a 32 by 32, and as do my other two builds as well. I'm not really a graph paper kind of guy. I'm dump the bricks out, and my daughter will be with me, and we'll kind of just sit there and just start kind of mapping out, you know, kind of like maybe when you see the ruins of a foundation of an old house or something. Just kind of start kind of plotting out kind of where the rooms and things are will be. So I typically do it that way. Um, I built it to be modular, but didn't do the interior as I was building it, and that's essentially the way I've done all of them. Kind of build it to be able to come apart and everything, and then I'll come back in and I'll add the interior later.
Yeah, and it does look good. It just it the way it came apart. Actually, the way you have it, like in this one, the one image I have up right now, it's almost like it fits on that, I guess, 32 by 48 base plate. It almost looks like it all fits there. Hopefully that's something Lego keeps. I know they did interior for the Home Alone one, but it was obviously designed like to be solid and like everything kind of to the back or whatever. So,
Yeah.
um, the so what would you say as you built this? Would you say would be your biggest design challenges as you were formulating this, and also, not only just to make it, but you're making it specifically to say, hey, this is going to be an ideas thing. Was there any special considerations you had to do specifically for that, where you kind of pull back and be like, I can't do exactly what I want here?
Yeah. So as far as challenges go, making it macho is actually very tricky with how the siding goes in, right? Because you don't want large gaps, and you have to be able to have essentially the layer of tiles so that the top can attach to the bottom. So the way I did that was actually a little bit interesting. There's one layer of the siding that's a tiny bit wider that unless you look really closely, you can't even really tell. But trying to come up with how to do that was pretty tricky. And then like the attic, being able to remove the roof and things like that to get around the chimneys, that was a little bit tricky. And then again, working with a scale that's with you want to be able to fit as much as you can, and you have a finite scale, so that's always a challenge. It's challenging sometimes not to put too much in, right? Because you can put too much in and then you can't really do anything. So there's always kind of things you have to consider. I think those are, you know, ultimately, working with Lego on the final version, I'm sure those are things we'll kind of work together on. What stays, what goes, that type of stuff. I have to imagine there'll definitely be some changes. But that probably was the biggest challenge, was getting that how to get the modulars to fit on top without this large gap in the siding. Like I said, the reindeer was something kind of start with at the beginning that was able to solve, but the rest of it kind of came together relatively straightforward. That little window that I mentioned in the attic, I don't know if you have the I'm trying to remember the name of the set. There's another large modular that I think was a 32 by 48 assembly square. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one.
I am familiar with it. Yeah, I don't have it, but yeah, I am familiar with it.
So I've got that. They did one technique where, they had some upside down arch pieces and things like that that kind of fit together, that I kind of used that technique to ultimately make that window, which was cool to actually be able to use another one of those techniques in another set. I wanted to get it so that it ultimately could open and close. I couldn't really come up with a mechanism to do that, so that might be one of those ones that maybe in the future we'll be able to figure out a way to do it. The gutter kind of coming off, I wanted to make sure I had a way for that to break free from the house. It'd be cool if maybe we could get the icicle to shoot out or something. I don't know. We'll see.
And that
But
was that actually leads into my next question. Hey, my next question was going to be: are there certain things? I mean, like obviously overall, you're probably very satisfied with how it ultimately turned out. But are there certain things that you were like, "Ooh, I wish I could change that. I wish I could make it better." Just again, like you said, you're all about the tweaking. So it's like, is there something that you were just like, yeah, I definitely wish I could go back to that.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are colors and things like that. I had to make the shutters like black. Really, they should be dark green. But in all honesty, those pieces were like $1.50 each, and I needed like 50 of them. So, so I just dealt with black, right? Things like that. I do think Lego will probably help come up with maybe some better techniques for the roof, maybe things like that, on how things come apart. But I mean, overall, I think I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I typically don't build on the software to start. What I do is I'll build and then I'll put it in the software afterwards. So I'm actually in the process of kind of working on some of that stuff now, and it's actually helped me to appreciate it a little bit more too as I'm putting it in there. The chimneys, you can see, go all the way to the all the way up the house, and I'm trying to come up with a way inside the house to not show the brick in like the living room, but just have a fireplace. I like kind of how that turned out as well. And in the upstairs, I ended up kind of turning them into bookshelves on the inside. So had some unique ways to accommodate some of that stuff. But we'll see if that ultimately changes later on too.
Good. So you did mention that as you go through the continuation of the process, and that's so what can you talk of? Obviously, again, there's certain things you won't be able to, but like, what is kind of the next steps since it's
Sure.
been approved?
Yep, I can talk to that. So I am under NDA, right? So specifics of the ultimate model I won't be able to talk through, but I can say that it will be a collaborative effort, right, between me and the ultimate Lego designers as well, which I'm very encouraged by that, right? I think it's such a great process that they want me to be happy, right, with what this ultimately is gonna turn out to be, which I appreciate so much. So now it's just a matter of over these next few weeks, months, however long it takes, right, working together to kind of come up with what is this ultimately gonna look like for everybody. So like I said, I can't talk about exactly what we're doing, but I can say that I'm absolutely involved, and it's something that I'm very happy to be able to be involved, right? They could have easily just said, thanks, we'll take it from here, but it's not quite like that.
Yeah, that I was very curious about that part. So I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of emails, a lot of Zoom calls or whatever. And do you know if it's something that's going to be developed? Like, do they do all their development like in Denmark, or is there like, do they have pockets around in like the different areas? Because I know they're building the one factory that's in Virginia, and I'm sure with how big the facility is, they're going to have some kind of development going on there and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I don't know in the future. I think this will take place primarily in Denmark, as far as I know at this point. Again, we're at the very beginning of the stages, but from what I understand, I think that's ultimately how it's going to work.
So, what's next? So obviously you have this that you're going to be, helping with the development and stuff, but until they get back to you or say, all right, let's continue on, what is the next thing that you're going to be doing? Is there more iteration, like doing any adjustments to the Christmas Story house, or or do you already have in mind, I have another mock that I really want to do, and that's going to be your next big thing?
Yeah. So I probably, and I guess you never say never. I thought I was done with Lego ideas twice before, right? Once we kind of got to the 10,000 and didn't make it in the past. So, I have no plans for probably another Lego ideas project at this point. Who knows? Things could always change in the future. And just to kind of back up a little bit, like I mentioned, this started 10 years ago, and this was always like I was trying to show my daughter that we could do something impossible, right? And this is something that I consider to be impossible. And along the way we had some really neat things that had happened. Like with A Christmas Story, we a couple years ago we got invited to the 40th anniversary of the movie. We got invited out to Cleveland to display all of our stuff, with like the whole cast from The Christmas Story. I was set up next to them. I had them over at my table taking pictures of my stuff, right? And like I've gotten to be friendly with several of them, which again never would have expected. We got invited to this event with like Al Roker, and it's funny, my daughter's gone through a lot of this stuff, so sometimes she can't necessarily appreciate all of it because it's since she was so young we've done a lot of this. But I think once she saw Al Roker, she was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then with It's a Wonderful Life, and I'm not sure how many folks are familiar with that movie, Zuzu from the movie, we got to meet her. We have a picture of her holding our house. She sent us like a Facebook message when we got to 10,000 saying, hey, awesome job, guys, that type of thing, which a lot of surreal stuff. This year we're doing the It's a Wonderful Life Festival. So some of the future builds, I've done a lot of stuff with A Christmas Story and It's a Wonderful Life, kind of building the different scenes of the movie. Maybe there's a little more to do with that. I always thought it might be neat to do like a Dickens village kind of thing, maybe, where everybody's got their normal Dickens village that they kind of put out for Christmas, but it'd be neat to kind of build Scrooge and Marley and Fezziwig's warehouse and all the different things. I thought that might at some point that might be neat to do, but I think for now this will be the focus for a little while, getting this thing as best as it can possibly be. And actually one other story I want to relate because it's super interesting. When after we 10,000, new things that happened, I think, were weird signs, just signs from above, right? Take it how you will. The first was we adopted a pet, and he had a bad cold when we got him. My daughter joked that we should call him Snots, right? Who is of course the dog from Christmas Vacation, which we thought that probably wouldn't be appropriate. But it turns out he truly has a sinus condition. He still has, at least 6 months later, right? He still has this terrible sinus condition. So we adopted a pet with a sinus condition. That was kind of the first one. Another one that happened is I actually had this weird snafu with my bonus at work, where I thought I wasn't going to get it, all this crazy stuff. And it turns out I did end up getting it, but I'd never had that kind of issue before. So, like I said, my friend sent me this Jelly of the Month club just kind of as a joke after all that stuff had happened. And then probably the weirdest sign of all. And this was between the time when kind of Lego reached out to me and said, hey, we want to talk to you. But I had no idea what they wanted to talk to me about, right? We had a squirrel in our house, and in my 50 years on Earth, I've never known anybody who's actually got a squirrel in their house. And it was just such a weird, like, what are the odds of this? And I just felt like, you know what, this thing's going to happen. So anyway, I wanted to relate those three kind of, crazy things that, I guess your mind just probably makes it so that it seems like these things can't be coincidences, but three pretty weird ones that had happened, just in these past few months that kind of pointed to, hey, maybe this thing's actually going to happen.
Yeah, those are pretty interesting. Especially the squirrel. That one's kind of like,
Yeah,
wait
that
a
was the one.
minute.
That's the one that blew me. And I tell you, my daughter told me that there was a squirrel in her house, and I'm like, there's no way. Like it's a mouse or something. There's no way it's a squirrel. And then I saw it with my own eyes, and it was absolutely a squirrel. So
That's quite hilarious.
yeah.
So let's ask something. What do you do that's not Lego related? Is there anything, or I mean, obviously this has taken up a lot of your time, and it will take up more time as you have more of the development process. But is there anything that you do that you're like, you know what, I need to step back from the Lego for a little bit and just get away and do something else?
Yeah, I have a lot of interests. uh, love history and traveling and all that stuff. Huge baseball fan. Up until a few years ago, I was actually playing in a men's senior baseball league, but my older brother and I just took up collecting baseball cards again, which is kind of fun. I guess we're all kind of getting younger as we get older, or less mature maybe. Um, I also love music, so I play in a band. So we get to play out, a few times a month, which is a lot of fun. Um, so I'd say all these things are probably, getting ready. I'm kind of in a position right now where I'd consider myself sort of semi-retired, but collecting all these things together to, once I'm retired, I think those will be all the things I'll focus on. And what I love about this, you know, being a Lego fan designer kind of adds, I don't know, a level of credibility or something, maybe is the right way to say it, where you know, for the rest of my life, enjoying Lego as a hobby, it's it really has been something super, I've had something super special happen to our family with Lego, and it's just going to make kind of the rest of the Lego experience be a celebration, while I'm retired.
I kind of agree, and that'll actually, as you go through this process, it'll kind of give you a window into, like, I know I've done this in the past with certain Lego sets where it's like, oh my gosh, why did they make this decision? Like, what in their right mind was like, oh, I like
Yeah,
yeah, it makes no sense. Or they throw something in and you're like, well, wait a minute, that, and then after you finish the build, you're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. That
yeah,
I think as you go through this, you'll probably be able to, and it'll be interesting to interview after all this is done. Like for
yeah,
instance, like, whenever the set comes out, and be like, okay, so you've gone through this process. What more can you tell us? Like how difficult it was, that sort of thing.
yeah. And I'm really excited for the, what the rest of this is going to bring. And I wanna cherish it, right, and enjoy it, because I know how rare it is. Um, so one of the things my daughter and I have talked about since the beginning of this is how incredible it would be to walk into a Lego store, right, and be able to take our project off the shelf and buy it. And one of the things that Lego gives you, so there's three things that you get when you become a Lego fan designer too. One is you get 10 free copies of the set, which is awesome. You get 1% of the net sales, which hopefully, if this is successful, that could be more than, I was like,
I will be
originally.
buying one, so you'll get 1% of me. So
All right, perfect. Um, and then lastly, which is really the thing we were going for, is you get a bio in the set, right? So in the instruction booklet, you'll have a little picture and tells a little bit about your story. So I just thought that would be the coolest thing. So we'll end up being in thousands or hundreds of thousands of houses, or whatever it ends up being. Once this set comes out, and we've talked about, even with the 10 copies of the set, no doubt, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the Lego store, we're going to take it off the shelf, and we're going to buy it because we just really wanted to have that experience.
oh yeah, absolutely. Now I do have to ask,
Of
and
course.
I think the way the movie was designed, it was designed of, like, to make it so, like, you know someone in your family that's like this. Do you have a cousin Eddie?
That's a great question. You know, I don't know that I could pinpoint a cousin Eddie. And maybe there's pieces of everybody that's a part of a cousin Eddie. You know what I mean? Like he's a amalgamation of several folks or something. But I will say, and this is true probably with A Christmas Story too. We can all relate to, it doesn't matter how you plan your holidays, right? Something is going to go wrong. Something's going to go be weird. Something's going to be unexpected. But typically in the end, you know, it turns out awesome, right? You know, maybe that's not every year, but, you know, I think we can all, I think that's why these movies become timeless, is because we can really relate to, you know, having the best intentions and expecting things to turn out a certain way, and then having them not turn out how you expect. And actually, probably I could use this whole Lego Ideas experience as that as well. All right, this thing turned out. I had already basically conceded that, listen, we had done some amazing stuff and had awesome experiences, and you know, it didn't end up getting us a set, but you know, maybe it ended up better in different ways. And then the cherry on the top was it ended up actually happening probably when we least expected it. So I think the last words of Christmas Vacation are Chevy Chase looking up at the sky and saying, "I did it." So, you know, I kind of feel like that a little bit after this whole experience.
Yeah, that's actually a great sentiment to have. It's like how many people actually get to, and the fact that, because you said like for Christmas Story it was what, about 40 or 60, something like that, whereas this was like 160 that you were against. Like,
yeah, so Christmas Story is one of 7. Yeah, so and honestly, that was after we had hit the Associated, when we were about 9,000. We did a local news story that hit the Associated Press. There was a blurb. New York Times had something, like just a little blurb. New York Post, like there's a big picture of me online, you know, in the New York Post. I went to work the next day. I was on a meeting, and there's somebody like from Indianapolis saying, "Hey, I saw you on TV this morning." Somebody from Connecticut. People were sending us news articles from Texas. I was like, "Oh my God, this is gonna happen!" Right? Like we're one of 7, and could not have possibly gotten like more traction than that, you know. And it didn't end up working out for whatever reason, which just kind of set our expectations. Like, okay, this is kind of impossible, right? But for whatever reason, that squirrel getting in my house let me know that this time was for real.
yeah, it set you up for success.
Yeah, yeah.
What it sounds like.
And the way these projects all kind of fit together. So we did A Christmas Story first, and then for fun, just like you had asked the question, hey, what else do you feel like doing? One of the things we did is like, oh, you know, we like It's a Wonderful Life too. We built the building and loan for It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of the buildings in the movie, and we, you know, just for fun, it was a modular that we could kind of put in our city, and we live close to Seneca Falls, which is like the setting, supposedly the setting for Bedford Falls in It's a Wonderful Life. There's a museum up there. One day we just kind of went up there. I was like, hey, would you like to like display this? You know, it's off season. You know, we're not doing anything with it. I thought people might like to see it here. And they're all excited. We told them about our Christmas Story thing. Like, oh my God, you have to do It's a Wonderful Life, right? So like, okay, well, we're not going to do the building alone. We ended up doing the Granville house, which was the house from the movie. So that all kind of played out how it did, and then at the end of that, somebody else asked me. It was actually Frank Capra's granddaughter, who said, "Hey, what are you gonna do next?" We're like, you know, we're huge Christmas Vacation fans. Maybe we'll do that. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, my cousin Frank." And actually, if you look at the beginning of Christmas Vacation, you know, I think a second assistant director or something that says Frank Capra the third, which of course is her cousin, right? And so kind of as a surprise, and it turns out I found out you couldn't even submit it to Lego Ideas at the time, but as a surprise to her for the next It's a Wonderful Life festival that they do annually, I wanted to build this model so that when she came, I could show her as like a little surprise. Hey, we built the house from Christmas Vacation. So it started as that, and then kind of came up like, oh, like you can submit this now, and I already had it done. And so that's how it all kind of fit together. Like one project led to the next, led to the next, and it's just been this linear path that ultimately got us to this point.
Yeah, it's really awesome how things just kind of interweave and just like suddenly, it's like, oh, this leads to this, and kind of like that continuing,
Yeah.
almost like a ricochet effect, bounce from one to the next.
Yep. And it's like whenever I think, something happens that, hey, you get down, I'll get like an email or something like that that sparks up something else that um, we've had so many examples of that type of thing over the course of this. Um, it's truly like one door opens or closes, one door opens. I've seen it happen 20 different times in this experience alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, question, because you were at Brick Erie last year. Are you going to be showing? Obviously, barring the unforeseen of like they say, hey, this weekend you have to fly to Denmark to do something with your set. But like, are you planning on being at Brick Erie again with your displays?
Yeah, I think so. We'll have to see. It's a September timeframe, right? I think that's typically when they have
It's
it.
like second or third weekend of September, or somewhere right around.
Yeah. Yeah, so it gets a little bit tricky that time of year just because it's the beginning of school for my wife and my daughter. But I'd love to be able to go again. Like we just did. So we're at Brick Universe a couple weeks ago. The weekend before the announcement came out. So that was exciting to be able to show everybody, and then after that announcement came out, kind of everybody who just got to see it, got to see that it actually made it through. So that it will be really cool to do a display now that I have not done one yet since it's been approved. So I'd love to be able to make it to Brick Erie if possible. I'd love to be able to make it back to Pittsburgh at some point, for some events. So I'll keep kind of watching out. We did Ultimate Brick Show last year in Pittsburgh, and I'll say that this was the most humbled I think I've ever been. We got the best of show, right, which I couldn't believe, but it's another thing that kind of said, hey, this isn't something to give up on. We could actually make this thing happen.
I mean, I did vote for you, so there was.
I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I was a little busy with what we were doing with the Death Star over there. Yeah, I had to make sure to get, because I was like, I know it's there. So
Yep. So we'll see. Hopefully, I can get out to Brick Erie or another Pittsburgh show at some point. But I love meeting people. I love seeing the excitement, and now we've got something extra special to be able to show folks, and and then once the set comes out, that'll be a whole other layer on top that'll be so exciting to be able to talk to folks about.
Yeah, I know for sure. I'll be definitely picking one up. And one of the things I like to do with sets is, because Lego doesn't tend to do this, independent companies do, is they like to light up the sets. So get LED string lights and be like, we're gonna have to replace some things that we can, and then we can have the one bulb that just does not work.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I have to imagine that the aftermarket light up Lego business is chomping at the bit for this one to come out.
Yeah, this one it'll be interesting because every single one of those companies does it a little bit differently, and like to have to make again you see it from space, so it's like they're gonna see how bright can we make it for at least for 5 seconds.
Yeah, and that will be another one that's interesting. We'll see how Lego does the lights. That was, I guess we talked about some of the challenges, like trying not to add too many or too few. I kind of built the model like, hey, he's in the process of putting the lights on, because I also don't want to ruin the house either with too much stuff on there. But I'll be interested to kind of see what we ultimately decide is the final version on how the lights get added. That'll be interesting.
Do you know if, because I think at least in the past I've heard that this is true, do you have to turn this in? Like, do you have to send this to them so like they can look through it, or is the studio stuff enough, or is it kind of like a mishmash of the two?
Yeah, so it's whatever you have. So basically, they've got all my pictures and everything like that. But I'm just kind of working on the studio stuff kind of on my own, but I'm happy to share anything with them. So but you don't necessarily have to. Some folks won't have, if it's a brick built project, a lot of folks have never even put it in studio. I happen to know how to use it, right? So I'll end up doing it, but it's not a requirement, right? And we've seen it in the past where sets haven't. Home Alone's a pretty good example that is pretty representative of the submission. It was pretty close, I think, to what the person submitted, but they did some really cool kind of play features with how it opens up and things like that. But we've seen ones that are also very different too. So I guess we'll ultimately see how it turns out. One of the things is I think some folks think that the set is a little bit, the picture that you're showing kind of maybe makes it look smaller than it is, but it is actually, like I said, it's about the size of the Home Alone house. But that's one of the difficult things when you're actually taking pictures versus using rendered stuff from studio. It's tough sometimes to show the scale.
Yeah, Lego pictures of Lego stuff is, I noticed this with my own stuff that I had submitted in the past. It's like, oh yeah, you really have to get the angle right, or you have to get the lighting right, and otherwise shadows mess things up. Or yeah, it definitely can be a chore in and of itself. It definitely takes, and you see, people that do animations with Lego, it's even worse.
yeah, and 100%, and that main picture, one of my concerns was I didn't want it to look too big, right? Like that's what distinguishes it from the other ones anyway, right? That this is, to me, the minifigure scale, right? But it can, it's different in person. It looks better in person.
Yeah, they tend to look better. I mean, like I've done the same thing with other things, and it's like, yeah, you kind of just got to see it. You got to see, the nuances, and you just don't get that from a photograph a lot of the time.
Yep, exactly.
Well, all right. I did put a poll out just to see what people thought, and it just, a general thing since we were doing, this, and it was, what's your favorite Christmas movie? And National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation has 50% of the votes. Christmas Chronicles got 12%, The Santa Claus got 25%, and Die Hard, yes, it is a Christmas movie, got 12%. So there you go. Everyone likes the movie. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, that's good. I personally love the idea of a Christmas Lego set, right? Even for non-Lego fans, as something that you can, because even a lot of times you don't have room necessarily to display some Lego things. But to me, Christmas is a little different, right? It can go away with your Christmas decorations. It can be something that you put out, just at the holidays if you want to. But it is, and it's something that also, will last forever. Even things like the Stranger Things sets are awesome. I've got the upside down and all that stuff. But 40 years from now, Christmas Vacation is going to mean more than that.
Yep.
So.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, we've come up on the hour. I haven't seen any other chat questions or anything. Trying to think if there's anything else. There's nothing else that I have here listed, because you pretty much covered everything as you were talking. So, I don't know. Is there anything else you can think of that's like ooh, like let me ask this: what's one takeaway you would say if you were starting over, or you were talking to your past self and being like, before or while you're doing this, this is what you need to do or make sure that you do when, either whether it's like in the development of this, when you go to submit to let or you're getting, the views, everything like that. What's one thing that you would say, this is a must, you must do this?
Yeah. Okay. So and I learned this a little bit from my original Christmas story project, right? And I took this into my next ones. Your main profile picture is your most important picture. If you have one thing to concentrate on, that is what is going to get shared with everybody. So make that the absolute best it can be, right? You don't want to have regrets and say, I wish I did something different on it, because that's it, right? Once it's out there, it is out there. So that would be my number one thing if I'm giving anybody advice. Put all your, well, put most of your effort into that profile picture, because most of the time people aren't even going to see the other pictures. The real interested folks will go in and look through the other ones, but that one is the most important one. If that doesn't get folks excited about it, then they're not going to go through the other pictures to go ahead and vote.
Shouldn't there be the poster above the bunk bed so Grandpa can smile himself to sleep?
Is
You
that my
probably
wife?
could. Yes,
Yeah,
you can
that's
figure out
my
who
wife.
said that.
Yeah, so she's been saying that forever. So, yeah, nope.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, like, Lego
Yes.
might be like, "Hey, we'll make a sticker. There you go."
I know. They could, right? It's exactly. It's her little running joke, right?
Had to get the little dig in there.
Yeah. Thanks, Tina. Appreciate that. And I guess the other thing before we jump out that I just want to say is thank you, right? I know we've had so much support, both during the process of collecting the votes and after and everything, and it is very humbling. I mean, the great thing about Lego Ideas is it is a community thing, right? We can make the best project ever, and if people aren't excited about it and people don't vote and do all that stuff, it goes nowhere. So we are so grateful for all the support and love we've had with this project, and every chance I get, I want to make sure that I say thank you. And people have been involved in different ways, right? Voting is one way, supporting, just having me on this, I appreciate this so much. This is another great way to kind of get the word out there about this, and for folks to know that with some persistence, some impossible things can actually happen, which we've had the luck to find out last week.
Yeah, absolutely. So the ultimate takeaway is nothing is impossible.
Yeah, this is the lesson we're trying to teach my daughter, right? We set our own boundaries, and if we think it's impossible, then okay, then it is, because unless you try, and even if it doesn't end up exactly how you expect, sometimes it can even be better.
Yeah, that's actually very true. It's like, and when all the signs point the direction that you're going, it's like, well, how can we fail? Or why would we not try harder and see where we can go?
Yeah, and I've always taken, again, inspiration from other people's excitement, right? where folks will say, "Oh, do this," or "What if we did this?" That is one of the things that helps drive kind of the passion for this, right? Because it's a rare thing, right, to be able to build something that folks come and see and get excited about, and it's a good feeling to have that positive reaction. So it helps drive us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with everybody and just tell us the story. And actually, it's really only I mean, not the beginning. You're kind of like at the almost to the middle, because now you've got a lot of other stuff that gets to happen before it becomes the actual reality, and it's something we can all get. And I'm really excited to see from what started where it goes and like what more happens.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm happy to come back and talk through the experience, but whatever I can share, obviously, between now and then, and then when we've actually got the set, we can talk through that, and that will be a really fun time.
We may have to, like, we'll both get our sets and be like, all right, we got to do a tandem build as we're talking about this.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you again, and thank you, chat, everybody, for tuning in and listening. Is there before we go, where can people find you? Like, are you on Instagram, Facebook? Where are you at, and how do they find you so that they can stay updated with it? Because I won't be able to give all the information all the time. So.
Yep, great question. So I concede I'm not good at social media. My wife's Facebook page is mostly how we shared this project, but I did set up. There's an Instagram page. So at NLCV_Lego. So National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation _Lego. So at NLCV_Lego. That is where I will post any kind of updates, any other fun things.
Sorry, I was typing that. Does that look correct? I put that in the chat. NLCV_Lego. Does that look right?
Yep. NLCV_Lego. That's it.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah.
That's where.
I think it's all under. I think it's all lowercase, but I don't think it matters.
No, at that point, yeah. I figured like since, National Lampoon, like figure abbreviation all caps and then Lego usually has a capital L or whatever. But yeah, people will be able to find it without probably just the first 4 letters. They'll be like, oh, there it is. There's probably not many people that have that.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So feel free, go out there, hit follow, and I'll continue to update as I have more information through this journey.
That's great, and we look forward to seeing what more happens with the journey. I mean, like, who knows? In 6 months, maybe you'll be like, you know what? There's some really cool updates. We'll be like, hey, we got to do this again, and we got to find out what what more is going along. Yep.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. Again, thank you everybody throughout this whole process, and I'm happy to give back with whatever else I can between now and then.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Jason. Thank your lovely wife for coming in and egging you just a little bit. That was fun to see there.
Of course.
But next week, everybody, back to building. And actually, probably have seen a little bit of this, but I was fortunate enough this weekend to acquire the Dungeons and Dragons Lego set, which was another idea set. That was one that actually, when I saw the submission for that, that was one of those ones where I was like, ooh, they made an amazing green dragon, and then the red dragon's kind of like, nah, it's not as good. But the set overall is still pretty cool, so I am excited to build it. So that'll be next Tuesday. So anything else?
Awesome.
Anything before we sign off?
Good from my side, unless there's any other questions. But thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. All right, until next time, everyone, as always, may the brick be with you, and keep on building and blessing. We'll see ya.